I talked a little while ago about how I feel like men need to be gayer for women, in the sense that they need to be more authentic and straightforward and earnest about their interest in women, because the alternative is this kind of like ironic, detached, disinterest, chauvinistic liking women, where you have to like constantly posture that you're better than them or that they don't have that much power over you. You know, it's like fighting off the perceived accusation that you are made weak by women. And pretty much right after I did that segment, JoCat taking an indefinite break. JoCat's the person who made the I Like Girls animation we saw. I'm not playing it again. If this is what it takes to be a content creator online, I don't think I'm cut out for it. TLDR, I'm going to finish up my current ongoing projects, then I'm going to be taking an indefinite break from making content. And then we have mucho texto. It's not actually that much text. It's pretty normal amount of text, I feel, for something like this. My understanding is that JoCat wasn't like a colossal content creator, but this post got a lot of attention. I mean, it has 28 million views, and for the most part, the attention that I've seen it get have been people upset that JoCat is leaving. I mean, people like this got a very big response, is what I mean to say. And it was mostly positive, or positive in the sense that people were sympathizing with JoCat rather than antagonizing. This cements my theory, because the ribbing and abuse and mockery that JoCat was getting for being gay for women was mostly people being insecurely, ironically detached, not them having a principled issue. It's one of those things where, you know, a lot of people will initially cringe or go or make jokes at the expense of the video or JoCat or whatever, but then if you sit them down and ask them, really, what's your issue with it? A lot of them go, you know, well, you know, this is why the cringe response, it's a product of weakness. You know, if you feel it strongly, you are weak. Your brain is weak. You're a baby. You're an insect. You're a little beetle, and I will stomp on you, and you'll die. It's not a sexy thing. You know, I'm not JoCat. I'm not into that dynamic. But it's a sign of weakness, really, because it's a purely emotional response. If you dislike something, I think you should be able to rationalize why you dislike it in a way that's not bullshit. What a lot of other weak people will do is they'll have an initial emotional disgust response to something. This is very much a conservative tendency, by the way. It, like, literally, it has been found, so I understand it, conservatives, reactionaries, whatever, tend to feel much stronger fear and disgust responses, initial irrational emotional responses that they then post hoc justify. This is why I say, when arguing with conservatives, if you really want to change their minds directly, it's not about refuting the rational arguments, because the rational arguments aren't why they moved over. They moved over because they have a deep feeling, a core fear or insecurity that has to be addressed. The other arguments they have are just ways of legitimizing that core fear. This is also the behavior of weak people. If you have an irrational feeling, that's fine. Feelings don't have to be rational. They're feelings. But you should be able to acknowledge it as such. You know, it shouldn't dictate or guide your behavior in a way that is harmful. Like, say, for example, running off, running a guy off the internet. JoCat is definitely a sensitive boy. I mean, you could probably guess that from the video and his general demeanor. So, you know, some people are going to say, he's being a pussy. The harassment wasn't that bad. I don't think it should have existed to begin with, you know? It's like, it's like if a bunch of harassment happened all of a sudden at like, I don't know, Bob Ross or Mr. Rogers or something. It's like the idea, like, what threshold is acceptable here? It's not like JoCat is me. I argue with people. I'm combative. I'm edgy. Okay, people are going to argue or shit talk me. I understand that kind of goes with the territory. What did JoCat do? In that case, the harassment, there should have been zero. What? He likes big girls, little kitty girls? So do all you I go online. Well, you all, he likes big titty girl. Like, you don't, you know, what are you even making fun of him for? Jesus. Did he talk about Israel? I don't think he has, but my impression of JoCat is that he's quite progressive. I mean, he's been an active advocate for trans people, as I understand it. These people are spineless. You seem to have linked me a tweet that has 1 like, and it has 2 images in it. Well, by doing this, am I about to sort of enormously magnify the amount of attention placed on one person? Yes, I will, as an example. as an effigy. All this man said is that he likes women and you all call him gay and objectifying women or whatever. You're all miserable and pathetic. Leave JoCat alone. He did literally nothing wrong. Thank you, neutral Barack Obama. Good point. To which this person, name bunch of numbers, says, he literally made a video about all the characters he's jerked off to. His little ooh-woo shtick makes it more unbearable. I'm allowed to make fun of him for that, lol. Let me take a look at this second image. All this MF said was good morning and he was cool as fuck and y'all hated him. No, he didn't. Should have received the harassment though. Oh, presumably this is in response to JoCat as well and not literally Uncle Grandpa. I have seen a lot of stuff like this. Most of the harassment that I saw being directed at JoCat was from left-leaning people who, I think a lot of them are legitimately heterophobic. They just don't like the idea of men liking women. For example, I saw people calling him a pervert, like a polite pervert, for talking about how he's attracted to women. I saw people saying that he was being superficial for talking about the way they looked, which for one, a lot of what he talked about wasn't just what they looked, but also, okay, gonna hit you all with a bit of a revelation here, a hot take, if you will. It's not sexist to find women's bodies attractive. That's pretty normal, actually. Being attracted to women would usually also entail being attracted to their bodies. You can say that. You're allowed to. Of course, if you're like really weird and chauvinistic or possessive or demeaning about it, you know, if JoCat had made a video where he was like, you know, I like, you know, some like, I like big butts and I cannot lie kind of thing, where it's just like, you know, look at these giant asses, haha, yeah, then okay, maybe you can make a comment about it being chauvinistic or sort of demeaning or whatever. Though honestly, I like big butts and I cannot lie. Baby Got Back, that's the actual name for the song. Baby Got Back, honestly not that misogynistic compared to a lot of... you can get a lot worse than that, you know? But like Vaush, everyone loves that song. Yeah, of course, it's iconic. I'm not denying it. I'm just saying that at least in that case, there would have been some statement to make about objectification. Vaush, why are woke scolds so sex repelled? Not all of them are, but a lot are. I've talked about this before, this weird Gen Z aversion to sex that I think a lot of it is kind of like a modern iteration of political lesbianism from the 1960s, where you have very left-leaning women or femmes or whatever who have had negative experiences with men, either personally or politically. They understand men are, generally speaking, conservative and so on and so forth. As a consequence of that, they have a personal distaste that they politicize. And in the context of that politicization, even something as innocuous and wholesome as JoCat's I Like Girls video comes across as predatory. It reminds me a little bit of the theories of Andrea Dworkin, you know, the like radical feminist from the 1960s, who said like, you know, all heterosexual sex is rape because in a society in which women are explicitly and implicitly coerced into the role that they perform as a woman, no sex with them as a man can truly be consensual. Now, I think that's horseshit. I think it's interesting to think about. I think it's interesting to think about and think like, okay, well, what does context mean in a world where people are pressured into being what they are? Okay, yeah, there's some material there. Saying it's all rape, that's really dumb. Very stupid, very low IQ. Big woman moment from Andrea Dworkin. Just couldn't keep up with my big brain. Vaush, it's a bit more nuanced than that. Yeah, well, I mean, we're not talking about Andrea Dworkin, we're talking about JoCat here, but I do disagree with, I mean, I read the thing, I did college... Yes. Vaush, are you serious? It was really lefties. I had no idea. I thought it was chuds. I'm sure it came from both sides, but I know for a fact that from JoCat's perspective, it would have hurt more coming from the left. Because if you're a left-leaning content creator and a submissive male, which means you're already kind of like a target of mockery from the right, and you make a video like that, and some fascists say like, oh, wow, you're a beta. Okay, I'm sure he knew that was coming. What I don't think he expected was persistent harassment and mockery from people who, let me be clear here, agree with the video. We're talking about an environment where people will mock the video, but then go like, yeah, same. What does it say about our culture that that's so common? That you can mock somebody for saying or doing something and then go, oh, but yeah, I agree with it though. Isn't that weird? We all do it to an extent. If a person expresses something in a way that we find kind of cringeworthy, but then we're like, okay, well, I agree with the fundamental. But in that case, it was an animated video. Like, it's meant to be campy. You know, is it cringe to be even a little camp? Because if you think that, you might as well be a homophobe, right? How can you be a part of the left-leaning queer community and also think any camp is innately cringeworthy? Serious question, by the way. So that can't be it, because legitimately, like, those are essentially mutually exclusive beliefs. So is it just heterosexual camp? I think that's the case. I think that's what bothered them. I think that the love and adoration that you can express for a woman's body, to them, is fine to express in a campy way if you're a woman. I see a lot of this with trans femmes as well, transbians, you know, trans lesbians, where it's like, some of the shit trans lesbians say to one another, you motherfuckers are chasers. I'm onto your shit, okay? You're not sneaking that by me. You guys say the most damnable things. But because you're both trans women, you know, it's like, and to an extent, I think that's okay, because, you know, if it's like two black people are dating, they can say different shit that I could say if I was, you know, interested in a black person, obviously, because there's a different cultural context, you know, different life experiences. So it's not surprising to me that there'd be a little bit of a blurry line there. Yeah, I don't think that really extends into the purview of mocking people for doing that, especially if you can't construct a logical argument. I think that what this tweet right here is a person who had an initial gut distaste for the video because they thought it was either cringeworthy for a man to be earnestly attracted to a woman, or chauvinistic for a man to talk about women's bodies in that way. And because that feeling was irrational, it was just a feeling, they then had to go make up this shit. This is made up, by the way. The reasons they've supplied for disliking the video are a delusion. They're made up. They're fake. They don't exist. But they constructed them to give a logical pretext, to make their feelings allergic, to make them, you know, wait, not allergic, contagious. That's what I was going for. To make their irrational feeling a contagious force that spreads from person to person in a way that it couldn't if they just said, you know, I irrationally believe this. Lefties do this with shipping culture too, where they conflate people that like shipping with being porn addicts. I think that a lot of young people are lonely and sexually frustrated. And I think that a lot of young femme people, because let's be real here, okay? Sex repulsion, very much leaning on the femme side of things in Gen Z, okay? Right? I don't have any data on this. I see what I see. When I see people acting sort of performatively disgusted by sexual attraction, interests, eroticism, I'm not saying it's all women. It's not all women. I'm just saying it leans that way. And I think a lot of those people are attracted to men. And I think that a lot of them don't like men very much as a block, because men are, let's be real, as a group, as an aggregate, generally a threat and reactionary. Not all of them individually. And I think it is bigoted to treat individual men as though they're a presumed aggressor because of that. But obviously, you know, there is a cultural context there. And I think that leads to a lot of resentment. There is a reason why the vast majority of Terfs are heterosexual women. There was a recent study done in the United Kingdom which broke people down by their gender and their sexuality, finding that lesbian women by far the most transpositive. Something like only like 6% were anti-trans explicitly of lesbian women, which is remarkable because the TERF narrative has always been trans women prey on cis lesbians, right? That's the narrative. But reality just does not match up. It matches up with the opposite, you know? Total opposite. So why? Well, I think that TERFs, in a lot of cases, have been abused by men or have had negative experiences with men or just fundamentally resent their attraction to men because a lot of them are heterosexual or bisexual, straight-leaning. And you know, the resentment that one feels when they don't like the group of people they're attracted to is very, very, very powerful force, right? look at it in incels, right? Like, look at that. These mother shoot up schools because they're attracted to women, but they hate women. It is an internal dialectic that is very difficult to resolve without things going awry, massively awry. So, I'm not saying this is just a woman issue, not even remotely, just this specific wedge, So they have that contradiction. They resent men, but they like men. And I think that leads to them having a lot of very wacky beliefs. From what I've seen, and I'm really generalizing here, a lot of the Terfs that I've seen seem to dislike men broadly, except for their husbands, who they love because they're not like other men, and they hate trans women because they see them as men trying to get closer to women in a way that bypasses what they perceive as natural defenses women have against male predation. In fact, I'm pretty sure J.K. Rowling explicitly writes that in one of her manifestos. Like, everything that I just said, I'm saying, I think they think this way. I think she just said that she thinks that way. She does? Okay, yeah, so that is what they believe. That's that group. A lot of modern Gen Z sex-repulsed femmes, I think they have that resentment towards men. I don't think they're as trans-negative on average. Though I did see one person on Twitter who said they agreed with rad femmes that men are disgusting because they were arguing with people who like JoCat. So there might be a pipeline there. There probably is a pipeline there. I don't know. But a lot of the modern sex repulsed Gen Z thing, it's not so much transphobia because Gen Z is very transpositive, relatively speaking at least. It just seems to be more loneliness. I don't know. A lot of young people have never been in a relationship that made them happy. A lot of them maybe just need to be softened out. I mean, it sounds extremely chauvinistic to suggest, but I think that much in the same way that leveling out a bit and having like a healthy relationship with a woman could probably do some good for incels as long as they leveled out first. The same would probably be the case in the reverse, where you have like these weird sex negative, sex repulsed, like antagonistic, going after JoCat type femme Gen Z whatevers. And a lot of them probably haven't had any kind of positive engagement with a guy, so maybe they like project a lot of stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of swerf behavior there as well. The number, like, there are so many swerfs that are like 18-year-old girls, and they always make logical arguments for it, like we should ban all of this because it harms women or whatever. What do you think, practically speaking, would happen, even if it could be done, in a ban on the sex industry broadly? It would just all go underground and get much worse. They don't logically think this through because they're not looking for outcomes here. What they're looking for is a way to politicize the disgust they feel. And the disgust they feel is that they can go online and see a woman like have her hair pulled back while they're being fucked by some ugly dude, I think it's okay to feel disgust at that, but they're politically rationalizing it in a way that reveals a serious lack of introspection and a lack of thought on these issues, Okay, so why talk about this? I wanted to talk about my feelings about why people acted this way. But as is often the case when people act poorly but don't have a good reason for it, now that the consequence of their poor behavior has been made public and plain by JoCat leaving, a lot of people are going, oh, how could you? Oh, my pure sweet baby cat boy, oh, I didn't want him to get this harassment, blah, blah. So it seems like the light of attention has made some of these people feel shame, which is good. I hope JoCat comes back. I've never watched a single video of his. The only content I've ever seen, the only voice of his I've ever heard, it was in that video. I don't know much about him except for a couple of Twitter screenshots of him being pro-trans or whatever. He seems like a nice guy. But I like nice people. I want the internet to have more of them. I don't like the idea of good people being driven out through cynicism. I would have been driven out a long time ago if I was focused on making like really wholesome, uncontroversial content and receive the same response nonetheless. I revel in the antagonism to some extent, but I'm built different is the thing. I just don't think people should have to survive this wave of cynicism in order to like past the kept gate of being a leftist content creator, especially when the thing you're getting shit over is that you like women, which like it's just not okay, Yeah, it's the dumbest controversy. Here are some examples of what you're talking about people having the light of shame cast upon them. Well, this is always nice to see, and this person even follows me. I can't respond to him directly, but someone pass along my sincerest apology. I jumped on the bully bandwagon, which is really atypical of me. I do feel bad about it. Zenrak. He, him. Gotcha. Okay? You are a king. Feel no shame. For by admitting your fault, you've surpassed 99.9% of the dipshits who will convince themselves that they did nothing wrong, okay? You stride forward, you stand tall amidst a field of manlets. You stride like a giant. And saying it's atypical of him kind of cushions the submission. I'll lean on positive. It's Christmas season. It's holiday season. We should all be good to people. I try to be good to people. Legitimately, I do. I think I'm nice to the people in my community. I don't give much shit to the people outside of my community unless they're fascists. You know, if they're fascists, whatever. They kind of bring it on themselves. Not my problem. It's good to be good. Being good, being positive, forthcoming, whatever, will always take more strength than being cynical and presuming fault. You know, it is always easier to start an interaction by assuming, to close yourself off from new people. You know, that's always going to be the easy road, you know, but you don't want things easy, do you? No, of course not, because life is about struggle. Life, all living, is about fighting. And what you're fighting for is a Merry Christmas. And you have to fight for it, okay? Exactly. You're like guts. You're like guts, okay? You're the struggler, all right? You're fighting, and you've got a hot-ass tomboy girlfriend waiting for you at the other side. Or potentially a hot-ass demigod white-haired twink, whatever you prefer. Probably both. War on Christmas rhetoric? No. This year we war for Christmas.